If you plan on retiring in the next couple of years, then something that is probably top of mind, or at least should be, is your retirement income. Where is your income coming from when you finally decide to retire? And just as important, if you have a retirement income gap, how much income do you need to generate to fill that gap? How do you bridge that gap in retirement? And so today we're going to go over that. We're going to go through a plan. Here we have James and Lindy. And James and Lindy today are 60 years old. Currently, they both work. James has a salary of $75,000 a year, and Lindy has a salary of $55,000 per year. Going into their net worth, we can see here that they have a total investment portfolio of $650,000. Now, going into their expenses pre-retirement, they have monthly living expenses in the amount of $6,500 per month. And now in retirement, they would like to spend $6,250 per month. They want to retire at the age of 65. In addition to this retirement expense, we have a joint other goal, which is in the amount of $5,000 per year. It starts at retirement. It lasts every year up until the age of 80. So if we go into the retirement analysis here, we can see that given these inputs in our current situation, we have a 94% probability of success with $2.7 million in ending assets. So, James and Lindy, given their plan today, they're in a pretty good spot. But remember, the point of this video is the retirement income gap. How do they bridge that? Where is their income coming from? So let's dive into the cash flows here. And if we go into their summary, we can see here that while they're still working from today up until retirement, they're going to have what's called spend from unsaved cash flows. That is, their income inflows exceed that of their total outflows. They are making more money, and therefore they have additional funds here. We can see that for this year, for 2025, in the amount of $15,000. And then as these expenses, increase, obviously that spend from unsaved cash flows decreases in value. And then we can see here, starting at retirement, starting at the age of 65 in 2030, up until the age of 75 in 2040, we have these negative net flows. Now, these are the years that we need to bridge. So where is this money going to come from? We can see here that in 2030, we need to pull $100,000 from somewhere. In 2031, we need to pull $103,000 from somewhere. And then Social Security kicks in at the age of 67 for both James and Lindy. And we can see here that their total income flows equate to $60,000. Adjusted for inflation, that goes up to 67, and so on and so forth until RMDs kick in 2040. But for several years, we have these negative net flows, and they are pretty substantial. So how do we bridge that income gap? Well, as of today, our only income outside of portfolio income in retirement is that Social Security benefit. And we can see here that if they collect with our current strategy at full retirement age, combined, they will have $60,800 in total benefit adjusted for inflation each and every year. Now, if they elect to collect at the age of 70 instead, they will have $81,189 in their total benefit. But see, for them, they want to retire at the age of 65, and so as of now, they're going to collect Social Security at the age of 67. So where again does that income come from? How are we going to bridge that retirement income gap that we saw in our cash flows? Well, that income is going to come from our portfolio. And so what we can see here is because we retire at the age of 65, we don't collect Social Security until the age of 67. We're going to be relying on our portfolio in the amount of 9.25% and 9.65% for the first 2 years of retirement. And then we can see here that for the lion's share of retirement, we have a sub 5% withdrawal rate. And so relative to our plan, pulling out sub 5% for each and every year for the entirety of our retirement, for James and Lindy, that puts them in a pretty good spot. Relative to how they're allocated today, if we go into their investments, we can see across all their accounts, we are assuming a hypothetical 8.6% annual return with a standard deviation of 10.7%. So if we go back to our retirement analysis, if we recall, today our portfolio balance is $650,000. $100,000. But we see here at the age of 90, it's $2.7 million, assuming our current plan. This is because our portfolio is appreciating by 8.6% hypothetically every year. But we saw going into our withdrawal rate that for the majority of retirement minus those first 2 years, we never pull more than 5.03% of our portfolio. And so therefore, each and every year in retirement, again, aside from those first 2 years, our portfolio continues to compound. Even with us pulling out, that $100,000, that $103,000. And then for about a decade there, relying on our portfolio to bridge that gap. Now, something I would want James and Lindy to consider is odds are in retirement, your allocation is going to be slightly different than the allocation that you have today. And so pre-retirement, maybe we stick with this current allocation, but maybe in retirement, because we are relying on our portfolio to bridge that gap, that income gap in retirement, let's assume that we go with a balanced portfolio. And so for the sake of this example, in retirement, a balanced portfolio is a 50-50 portfolio, 50% equity, 50% fixed income, with a hypothetical annual return of 7.4%. And if we go to our retirement analysis, we can see here that this dropped our probability of success to a 93%. And if we go to our ending assets, we can see here that we'll have $776,000 less, but we will still have $1.9 million in ending assets. If we go to our retirement details and look at the withdrawal rate, we can see here that our withdrawal rate, not much has changed. In fact, looking at our withdrawal rate later on in retirement, again, aside from those first 2 years, our withdrawal rate for the lion's share for all of retirement is sub 5%. And so looking at this plan, James and Lindy are still in a really good spot. And so guys, the point here is when we think about your retirement income gap, we need to first identify what income in retirement will you have. And for James and Lindy, the only income that they have in retirement is their Social Security benefit and then that portfolio income. So first, identify what income do you have in retirement. Second, identify your retirement expenses, your projected retirement expenses. Now, this might be different than your pre-retirement expenses, so make sure you clearly identify that. Then identify your investment strategy. How are you allocated? What does your total hypothetical annual return look like? And then how much are you pulling out of your portfolio each and every year to bridge that income gap that you have? Guys, looking at your retirement income gap can be scary. I invite you to click the link in the description, create your free retirement plan so that you too can create a plan just like this and you will be on your way in no time. As always, until next time, thank you so much and have a good one. Bye-bye.